This is what I was trying to tell Hamas 25 years ago, that violence is a dead end because you will pay the bill in blood. People are not listening. And if they continue to be like this, just sticking their head in the sand, blaming the wrong people, not seeing things for what they are, not realizing the origins of this suffering, then we are going to go in this vicious cycle for eternity. And if we go farther, yes, it could turn into violence. Okay, because the war is not over, and I don't know how long it's gonna take. And nobody has the perfect solution, not the United Nations, not intelligence services, and most certainly not the idiots on the streets. The human condition is the human delusion. I've seen it in the Middle East, and now I see it here in Manhattan. This is ridiculous. Go home. Go find the real life. Go find a job. That they are going after Hamas until the end of the day. It doesn't matter where they go. It doesn't matter how far they're going to go. Even if Elon Musk put them on Mars, the Israeli intelligence is going to go after them on Mars and blow them up there. The people want to label me. They want to label Israel. They want to label the CIA, all the people. It's not only Israel in this war. It's the US government, the mighty of the US government, the nuclear power, the superpower of the world is in this war.
So, Mosab, it's good to see you again, man. And thank you for doing this, by the way. I know that you're keeping a low profile. Well, lately, I don't know. I've seen you in a lot of different places, but mostly keeping a low profile. And getting you to record sort of puts you in a little bit of danger and is generally kind of a pain. So I wanted to express my appreciation first on behalf of myself and my audience just for coming to see us again, because I know it's not a light lift.
Thank you to have me.
Most people will have heard the other episodes I did with you years ago, actually quite a few years ago, that I've recently going to be rebroadcasting with commentary. But just in case, can you give us like a brief background? Why did they call you the Green Prince, etc.?
The Green Prince was my code name within the Israeli intelligence, where I worked for about 10 years undercover, trying to find suicide bombers, terrorists, plot to solve the, let's say, to decode Hamas military wing in the West Bank, which was carrying many suicide bombing attacks against Israel. So this was my code name within the Israeli intelligence community.
And why did they choose you for this? Because I think a lot of people, they don't really understand what your relationship is with Hamas.
Well, my father is one of the co-founders of Hamas movement, and I was his right-hand assistant. So basically, I had my problems with Hamas. It's a very long story. I did not like them since childhood. It was my father's project, but I had problem with Hamas in principle. And as I grew advanced in age, the distance between me and Hamas became wider and wider, and it's still actually getting wider and wider until today. So that was one of the dimensions why I ended up working with the Israeli intelligence. There were, of course, other reasons how I end up in such underground organization dealing with very dangerous people who blew up universities, buses, schools, etc. You can say that I had personal problem with Hamas, but I had a fundamental problem that I saw Hamas was just a very destructive potential. And I realized that my father was going towards self-destruction. Our people were going towards self-destruction. So my rational mind did not allow me to I couldn't be part of Hamas or just to continue with the family business for whatever security it gave me and contradict with my very basic intelligence. Of course, I can go on and on why, I end up working for Israel against my father's own organization. I cannot reduce it into words. This is an evolution. It took many years for me to come to the realization that Hamas was a disease and I needed to fight against it.
Yeah, I think for people who really want to deep dive on that, hopefully they've heard the previous episodes that, again, I think you and I spent something like 3 or 4 hours talking about 4 or 5 years ago now, and we'll put those in the feed. But before we get to specifics on the current events, what is your take on this current situation in general? Because you're very opinionated when it comes to this, as you should be.
No, honestly, I'm not sure about your term. It's not a matter of opinion. You have an opinion as an outsider of something. But when you have a long practice in a certain reality and you have the experience of at least 30 years of something, living it every day and seeing it grow, then it's not a matter of opinion now. It's not a matter of point of view. It's a matter what it is. And on that authority I speak. Hence, this is my life journey, and it's unfortunate. And what I don't want for the world, actually, that they have to go through the suffering that I had to go through to come to the same realization. Is why I just tell the world, here it is. It's just for free. Hamas is bad news. We don't have to go into Hamas' brain and go through Hamas experience in order to realize how bad they are. But the human ego does not accept the simple truth. It is very curious to experience it on its own. So I'm not posing here as an expert on the issue. I've been saying this for about 20 years. And prior to that, 10 years in secret fighting against such a monster. An ideological monster that is representing the deepest level of human delusion that wants to dominate the universe, that is anti-other. Anything that is different than Hamas is their enemy. So we're talking about a global threat. And now we have the situation where they hijacked an entire society, what's so-called the Palestinian cause, which many forces throughout the centuries hijacked what's so-called a Palestinian cause. And today I see in the United States, the mob down the street also hijacking the cause, projecting their hatred, whatever their need for a revolution. And my personal experience say, no, it's evolution. It's not a revolution. Revolution, rebellion, etc. This was good, maybe hundreds of years ago. But right now, we came to a point in the human consciousness to realize that it's evolution. It's not a revolution. If we need a quick fix, a fast change, because this is how much desperate we are for change, then it is gonna be violent. So are we willing to pay the bills of violence? This is what I was trying to tell Hamas 25 years ago, that violence is a dead end because you will pay the bill in blood. But they wouldn't listen. My father wouldn't listen. Now the world, and especially the free world, is not listening. That this is an evolution. We need to educate ourselves. We need to grow. We need to work on ourselves, not to blame the other. And that's Hamas' game, and I don't like it. Blaming Israel for the mistakes that Hamas is doing. Hence, I feel the burden, that I have to shout out loud, all the time. Otherwise, people are not listening. And if they continue to be like this, just sticking their head in the sand, blaming the wrong people, not seeing things for what they are, not realizing the origins of this suffering, then we are going to go in this vicious cycle for eternity.
Were you surprised at all by the brutality of the October 7th attack from Hamas, or was this par for the course?
Look, I was not surprised by Hamas savages. I know them. I lived in prison with them for 27 months. If you want to get to know somebody, live with them in a small room for 27 months. This is how you get to know someone. So I met many Hamas leaders in prison. I was there when Hamas was born and before Hamas was born. And I will be there after Hamas is dead. This is a promise that I give you. So it's not that I was surprised, but the scale of the attack was greater than I thought Hamas could manage. And that the fact that they captured everything on camera, on one hand is disgusting, and it's it gave us a setback in the human consciousness. But on the other hand, I want to say that Hamas made a mistake, because this is how they revealed their true nature to the world. And I invite everybody to see Hamas barbarism and what they are capable of doing. And this is nothing, because if we allow them to grow stronger, to give them what they are asking for, they're asking for territory and more power, recognition, and they want the world to tell them it's okay. The use of violence is justified. Do whatever you want, because we are afraid that some children are going to die in Gaza Strip. So this is now the dilemma, the moral dilemma of the free world that all of us are struggling. On one hand, we're supposed to condemn a terrorist organization, but on the other hand, we don't want to see children dying, and everybody is emotional, and here we go. We are bending. Mm-hmm. We are bowing to the devil. Instead of saying, okay, children are dying, and it's devastating to see such pictures, but we have to eradicate this Islamist group. We have no other choice. We cannot take just a pill and go to sleep and wake up in the morning and the world is going to be different. We will have to face Hamas sooner or later. If we don't finish them this war, today, this time, they are going to be there tomorrow, and they are going to be deadlier.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, I think a lot of what you mentioned, the emotional triggers, watching all these civilian deaths on the heels of another horrific terrorist incident, it's been hard for a lot of people to deal with, and I think for everyone to deal with. And all this talk right now of a ceasefire because of civilians in Gaza, it's tough, because while a ceasefire is what civilians obviously need to stay safe, tactically it seems like a poor move for Israel in many ways. And I wonder what your take is on this. People want to limit civilian deaths, but I don't know if a ceasefire will actually do that long term.
Look, yesterday I was sitting at the United Nations Security Council, just right next to the 5 superpowers. Russia was just 1 seat away. And I have to tell you that this is their game. They want to rescue Hamas. They're all pushing for a ceasefire because they need Hamas. Hamas is the wild card. Whenever they can activate it. Look what happened in Ukraine, right? And Putin was so desperate to change the world's attention from Ukraine to the Middle East. And he knew that the Middle East is such a sensitive, religious, the most vulnerable location. If you ignite just a small fire, it turns into a wildfire in no time, and nobody would even think or talk about Ukraine. And he succeeded in that. This is why, for Putin, who hosted Hamas how many times in the past year, how many trips Hamas leaders did to Moscow. And we need to ask Putin, what were they doing in Moscow, with the KGB? So anyway, this is a big game, and even Hamas, the fighters, they don't even know how they've been used by the superpowers. And today the United Nations comes again to rescue Hamas. This is not the first war between Israel and Hamas. This is, what is it, the 4th big war in Gaza? So basically this is their game. They are prepared for a short-term war, and they cannot stand a long-term war. What they need a quick ceasefire where they attack Israel, hurt it so bad, then Israel retaliates, many civilians die, Israel get condemned, Hamas get legitimacy, and more power, more money. This is their game. And, as someone who knows them very well and understand their mentality, I know their brain very well, I say, no, we cannot give them a ceasefire now. Well, I see the children dying on the other hand, but if we don't finish them now, what will happen tomorrow? And for all those who say ceasefire, I say, okay, if we want to go to this extent, and if you want a plan for a ceasefire, then I don't have a problem with it. Let's do a ceasefire. But I have some conditions. First of all, I would like for Hamas to return all the hostages, international and Israeli hostages. Second, Hamas need to give up power, get on a ship, and move to Algeria In Algeria, they have the president of Algeria, the parliament of Algeria, they are very good friends with Hamas. And Algeria has got the olive trees, it's got the Mediterranean climate, it's perfect for Hamas. If they really love the Palestinian people, if they care for the Gazan children, if they want a real ceasefire to protect the children of Gaza, if this is really their intention and why they are begging for a ceasefire, then I say quit. Get on a ship, get on a boat, and get the hell out of Gaza. Let the people of Gaza be. Because the people of Gaza dying today because of Hamas, and because of Hamas only, who's using them as human shields. So now, this would solve the dilemma. You want a ceasefire? We cannot have a ceasefire while Hamas is the predator. Hamas is the one who's causing the death for all the children, gambling with children's blood. So if you want a ceasefire plan, then no problem. Hamas get out of Gaza. They will have a safe passage. If they want to keep their uniform, their guns, no problem. They can take their guns with them and get the hell out of Gaza and let the children live. Then I'm sure Israel will be willing to withdraw from Gaza and give Gaza back to the Palestinian Authority, more moderate ruler that is more accountable to the international community. They are corrupt. I don't like them either. But at least they are not using children, innocent civilians, as human shields. So before we talk about ceasefire, I want to understand who is proposing ceasefire, what's their objective of the ceasefire, what's their goal, what they want to achieve from a ceasefire. Is it giving a lifeline to Hamas? Then this ceasefire is a corrupt ceasefire, it's poisonous, it was not meant to save the children of Gaza. It was meant to save Hamas. And to that ceasefire, I say no.
Can you explain the organizational structure of Hamas a bit? I know the top leaders live in Iran, Qatar, and elsewhere, and they're not in the Gaza Strip or the West Bank. They're taking calls by the frickin' pool at a villa somewhere. If we can't get the leaders and cut the head off the snake, does the IDF stand a chance of eradicating Hamas? Would it work to cut the snake into pieces as opposed to taking out the head, just to torture the analogy a little bit?
Look, whether you start with the tail or with the head, ideally you start with the head of the snake. But they are under lots of protection. They are under the Russian protection. Even the Chinese are giving them cover. We're talking about the United Nations failing to condemn Hamas as a terrorist group and condemn the attack on October 7th. How could this be possible? At least condemn them. Instead, they are condemning Israel while it's defending itself. And when we talk about civilian casualties, people are so overwhelmed by 10,000 casualties. I say this is a miracle that we don't have 100,000 dead. Gaza is one of the most populated area on earth. If this was any other democracy versus Hamas, the numbers would be multiplied. I guarantee you that. Because how can you fight a group that is taking an entire society as human shields? Israel, for at least a month, asked people to evacuate North Gaza. And Hamas asked them, no, stay. It's part of your national obligation. It's part of your religious obligation to stay in the northern Gaza. Don't obey the Zionist enemy. This is Hamas propaganda. And people bought into it. And now they are dying, while Israel still give them safe passages, few hours per day to just evacuate. This is how evil Hamas work in Gaza. So with that said, now we are not in a position to discuss Hamas structure. They have military wing, they have political wing, they have security wing, they have charity wing. Then they have the mother organization, which is the Muslim Brotherhood. We'll have to deal with this because we have Muslim Brotherhood here in the United States. And they are moving freely. Why? Because this is how the Muslim Brotherhood work. Back in 1987, the Muslim Brotherhood established Hamas as a iron arm, and Hamas gave birth to Al-Qassam Brigade, which was a military arm of the movement. Then they gave a birth to Al-Majd, which is the secret organization of Hamas concerned of security. So layer upon layer upon layer, and you and I, we can go into Hamas rabbit hole, for the next 100 years. We will never be able to figure them out because they are a matrix of evil, because they meant to be sophisticated to this degree, and they activate their cells whenever they want. If we don't destroy their infrastructure, everything that they stand for the first time, Israel had to bomb mosques. Israel would never bomb a mosque. There are mosques that they're older than the state of establishment of the state of Israel. In Yafo, in Tel Aviv, you see those mosques. Israel kept them. It's a heritage. Israel respect culture, did not have a problem with culture. But today, because Hamas stronghold in Gaza is operating out of mosques, operating out of hospitals, operating out of schools. They build in their bunkers, their tunnels, their offensive tunnels under hospitals. How can you deal with such an enemy? All these people who are protesting, I say, hey, give us an alternative. If you were in the same situation, what would you do? We are not choosing between excellent and better, or between bad and good. We are choosing between bad and worse.
Mm-hmm. Do you think we'll see terrorism in the West as a result of this conflict? I know Hamas has operatives overseas. I don't know if they're significant numbers, but where I grew up in Michigan, Dearborn, Michigan, which has a huge population of Middle Eastern folks, mostly, normal American folks, immigrants, there were people there who bragged about being in Hamas when I was a teenager. My cousin's in Hamas. Do you know what Hamas is? And I remember going to one kid's house and they had weapons in the house. Now I think about it, I should have reported that guy to the FBI, but I was, 15 years old. And my dad's colleague, my dad worked at Ford, and the FBI raided his office one day because one of his colleagues was sending night vision goggles to Lebanon and to I think Gaza, or at least the West Bank, something with Hamas in the 90s. And he ended up, the FBI ended up taking the computers and everything out of the office. So they operate overseas. Are you worried about that at all, just from a personal safety perspective?
Look, Hamas is already here. And Hamas already here as hatred ideology. Because many of the angry people, like yesterday, as I leave the United Nations Security Council, on my way back, there was a mob calling, calling free Palestine, etc. And just the anger. I walk through that mob, and I'm not afraid of the mob my entire life. I've seen the mob form so many times in so many societies. It's all of the same freaking kind. Wherever you see a mob, people angry, projecting their hatred on a certain cause, especially overseas cause, be wary of these people because they're of the same nature. I don't want to say savages, but we had some terrorist attacks here, mass shootings everywhere. So now somebody who's looking for a revolution, and this is what I was saying from the early beginning, okay, people in this country are desperate for change. I understand this. I've been in this country long enough to realize, that people are in debt. Yes, you are in debt to the bankers, everybody. But the way towards change in a civilized culture is through dialogue, through peaceful protest, not tearing down, some posters that referring to kidnapped children and infants to bring to the world's attention that we have a hostage situation, that we all need to be united in the face of such an evil. People are being so without compassion, tearing down. What's this? You see even a poster for a dog, a missing dog, and everybody would just feel compassionate towards the animal. This is the America that I know. And now what's happened? That we lost our compassion, and just everybody who's got an issue with the government, with the bankers, with the establishment, with the Zionists, with whatever, all hypothetical entities that they're non-existence, and people just all of a sudden united in their hatred. Everybody has a different reason. So with that said, if this is the reality, if this is what we are facing, then we're talking about a mob. And this is not a civilized society. And if we go farther, yes, it could turn into violence. Okay? Because the war is not over, and I don't know how long it's gonna take. And nobody has the perfect solution. Not the United Nations, not intelligence services, and most certainly not the idiots on the streets.
What does Hamas actually want? You have a up-close view. A lot of people don't seem to understand what Hamas... I mean, Hamas has stated preferences, and you hear people on the street argue that those aren't true. Eradicating the Jews or eradicating the Jewish state, that they'll say, oh, no, that's not true. It's just... But it's like they wrote that in the dang charter. So who do we believe? Them when they tell us who they are, or the current spin? I don't know. What do you think Hamas actually wants?
Hamas want to annihilate the state of Israel in order to build their Islamic state. It doesn't stop there. They are looking for a global Islamic state. This is Hamas. So, of course, they can say, we are the victim. Israel is killing us. They can use the occupation as an excuse. They can say they killed many of us as an excuse. That they are looking for something that justifies their violence. And this is why we need to be very careful. No matter what. From this, they want pro-Palestine, I have no problem. Do it peacefully. Okay? But in the meantime, make sure that you condemn a terrorist organization that want to annihilate a race, a religion, a nation that has contributed so much to the human life, so much to the human evolution. This is the Jewish people. And if we are not compassionate towards this, seeing things for what they are, then we have lost sight. Then we actually shooting ourselves in the head. This is what we are doing. So with that said, okay, you want to be pro-Palestine? First of all, get to know what Palestine is. You will ask down the street, how many people, what Palestine? They don't know what Palestine is. You ask them, what was the name of the prime minister or the king or the president of Palestine prior to the establishment of the state of Israel? They don't know because there was no such a thing. Because Palestine is such a broad term. And it seems that many people are pleased to project their hatred through this. It's the human condition, it's the human delusion. I've seen it in the Middle East, and now I see it here in Manhattan. This is ridiculous. Go home. Go find the real life. Go find a job. Contribute to life instead of going against and after the most productive people in the universe. The most intelligent people in the universe. This is something I came to realize in experience. So it's not acceptable. And this is Hamas propaganda. And those who follow Hamas lead, they're not only going towards self-destruction. They are ruining our civilization. And I love our civilization. It's not perfect. Okay, and all civilizations are ought to fall. But this one, I want it to go for eternity because I think it's amazing. I love living in it.
Thanks for watching on YouTube. Remember, you can also enjoy The Jordan Harbinger Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Our podcast feed is a treasure trove of insights from intellectuals, authors, spies, artists, athletes, pioneers, engineers, former mafia bosses, and business leaders, all sharing their secrets to success. For more information, click the link in the description. Now, back to the show. What will stop Hamas? Is war the only path to peace at this point, or is there an alternative in your mind?
They are the ones waging the war. I just gave you a solution. If they don't want war, if they don't want to die in Gaza and cause the death of tens of thousands of people for the next 6 months or for the next year, could be the next 5 years, because nobody knows how this is going to develop. If they don't want this, take your guns, keep your uniform. If you don't want to get humiliated, get on a boat and get the hell out of Gaza. This is my suggestion to Hamas. I don't want to say the lifeline I want to give them. But the honest truth, they are not willing to do this. They prefer to see the entire Gaza Strip burnt down to ashes before they gave up their ideology. This is the true nature of Hamas. So today when I said, okay, here's a proposal for a ceasefire, that I stand behind it. You know what I meant? I meant only one thing, to test Hamas. Because the entire world is confused about their nature. So I say, okay, here's a test. If you love your people, if you care that much, get out, go to Algeria. It's not that far. It's the same climate. People of Algeria love Hamas. They welcome Hamas. Hamas leaders been to Algeria parliament. They've been visiting with the president. They love each other. So why to die and cause the death of so many innocent people who has nothing to do with Hamas? This is the test. Will they accept this? Do you think they will accept that?
Unlikely. How do we beat Hamas militarily? Like, I know you're not a tactician, but you know Hamas offensive and defensive capabilities, I would imagine at this point, having been so close to it. Do you know much about the Hamas tunnels? Have you seen those before when you were there?
I've never been to Hamas tunnels. This whole thing developed after I migrated to the United States. We could have dealt with Hamas when I first brought the information to the intelligence service communities, and I said, Hamas is about to take over Gaza. I was the first to report that, and they did not take it seriously. Then after that Hamas coup in 2007, they took over Gaza. Then Hamas kept on building their military power. And every time we besieged the people of Gaza and we gave Hamas the freedom. This is the mistake. Let them roam the region in Qatar and Turkey, in Lebanon, even in Russia, flying private jets, while the children of Gaza dying in despair and poverty. We should have went after them, never let them have the freedom to do anything.
Do you think that Hamas predicted this response from Israel in response to the attack, or do you think they bit off more than they could chew? You said the attack was it surprised you in scale. Do you think it maybe even surprised Hamas and how much they were able to get away with?
It looks like they were surprised of how many hostages they were able to bring back. Because when they sent their savages, they promised them $10,000 an apartment if they bring one Israeli hostage. That was their promise. So those maniacs, when they crossed the fence, they went with lust, not only to kill Jews, but also to make wealth and to make security in life by destroying other people's lives. To the degree, when somebody on their way back, they found a corpse. They kidnapped a corpse. They did not only kidnap living beings, they kidnapped corpse to bargain for money and prisoner exchange. You tell me, this is not even terrorists. This is dark age savages, unheard of reality that we are witnessing in the 21st century. And people in the free world, we are failing to condemn them. We are failing to condemn this pro-Palestine. Shame on you, pro-Palestine movement. You don't have the capacity to say condemn Hamas. Hamas, a terrorist group. Hamas is designated by the United States of America as a terrorist organization for many, many years. And you as Americans, you don't have the power to just call things for what they are. Instead, you are escaping and going to blame Israel. I don't know what's the matter with this type of people. But anyway, whether they listen or not, Hamas is finished. Even if it means a regional war. Israel is determined. Even if Israel will lose the American support, the Jewish people, they are not going to allow savages, Nazis, anti-Semitists, whatever you want to name them, they have different names, but they are of the same nature, apparently. And everybody is just unmasking themselves. Like, it's very clear, basically. Because now it's chaos. And in chaos, this is when people actually show their true nature. So go on, project your hatred on Israel. But I tell you something, from someone who has experience with the Israeli intelligence community, the most powerful intelligence service in the world, that they are going after Hamas until the end of the day. It doesn't matter where they go. It doesn't matter how far they're going to go. Even if Elon Musk put them on Mars, the Israeli intelligence is going to go after them on Mars and blow them up there. I tell you, as someone part of the Israeli intelligence operation. So this is a promise. And for you to understand that this is the reality of the Israeli response, you should know that Israel is not going to give up. Not now, not this war. Because they will never allow Hamas to repeat this attack again, ever again.
People will say, oh, he said he was part of the Israeli intelligence operation, or if they heard the previous episodes and know you worked with Israeli intelligence. A lot of people will say, look, this guy's just spouting Israeli propaganda. I'm not sure how we could ever convince those people otherwise, but what do you say to those critics of your message and say, who say that you're simply parroting Israeli talking points?
Look, it's the same thing with the people of Gaza. When I first start convincing my father that violence is the end, that was my private conversation with him. He refused. He insisted on that this is our right to defend ourselves. In his understanding, this is self-defense. To blow up universities, schools, synagogues, beaches, nightclubs, killing all type of people, Americans, teenagers, Europeans, Israelis, even Israeli Arabs died in Hamas terrorist attacks. So in his opinion, that was self-defense. It was impossible to rationalize with him. Because if this was his delusion, it meant for him to die, to get out of the cave of his delusion. Looking at shadows and thinking that they are real. So anyway, even my own father I could not convince. And it did not stop there. I saved his life. Even though he was a convicted terrorist. And because of my position within the Israeli intelligence, he was not touched. And he lived. And he's still living today because of my effort. To save other people's lives and to save his ass from himself. So basically, what was my reward? He disowned me. And you know what? I don't have hard feelings. I don't have feelings towards this problem because I had to conquer my feelings because of the majority opinion doesn't matter. But did it end at the family level? It didn't end. The entire nation. Okay, if the sound of reason, in their opinion, means treason, then this is their problem. I am firm. I stand on a solid ground. I don't need validation from nobody. Even 7 billion clowns out there, say you're wrong. Doesn't mean that I am wrong. So, whether they're listening or not, it begins with words. Reject my words. Then you will have to deal with fire. This is my promise. So, okay, you can stand hiding behind your mask of knowledge, whatever, as outsider observing the outside, and label me as much as you want. If my truth is not acceptable, then you will have to go through the fire of truth in order to learn on your own. It's gonna be as simple as that. It's either you take it as simple as it is from me, or you will have to go through it. I survived, but I am not sure that you will survive.
A lot of people disagree that the blood is on Hamas's hands, right? You mentioned this earlier. They say Israel has occupied Gaza for a long time. The strikes have killed civilians. They've locked these Palestinians up for decades in a refugee camp. I have to admit, I'm sympathetic to some of those arguments, right? I can't imagine living in a place like Gaza. I spent a week there. It's very eye-opening. It's sad. You feel the hopelessness. It's in the air. I don't think that excuses terrorism, to be clear, or murdering civilians. But a part of me understands how people get this way.
Listen, it's a self-inflicted pain. This is what it is. When an entire society is under the influence of religious opium, drugged in their religion, drugged in their culture, incapable of seeing things for what they are, dwelling into cowardice that they are afraid to confront. They see the truth, they see the predator, but they don't have the power to fight. Then they choose to be silent. Others choose to take part with Hamas. Hence, an entire society is participating directly and indirectly. When a majority of the Gazans voted for Hamas, they made a very big mistake. Because when a majority agree on something, then they are partnering with this. This is exactly what Hamas did. They won the elections, and now they took advantage of the sheep, that voted for them. Now, in a situation like this, a society has fallen from grace. When they agreed to Hamas ideology, gambling with children's blood, they saw it. How many wars happened in Gaza, by the way? This is the fourth? Mm-hmm. Could not they see it? Could not they see it the first war? How Hamas played them? Could not they see it the second war? The third war? Cannot they see it now? What Hamas is doing to them? While Hamas leaders sit in Four Seasons in Doha paying $1,500 a night. And the people of Gaza are dying. The children, the women, everybody. People don't have the power to just stand and say, this does not represent us. When we have a society that is paralyzed to this degree, that does not have the power, well, they already did. They already did long time before the strike. And this is what I've been saying from day one. They wanted me dead to contradict them. And they convinced the whole society that this is a traitor. But I lived long after their accusation, and I promise I'm going to live much longer than all their delusion and their lies. You know why they hate me very much? Because when they see me stronger 1,000 times when I was back in the region. And they hate to see this. They are counting that if I got shunned by the family, I go into the unknown, I have no support, and I will die on my own. But guess what? I learned how to walk on my own and to be alone. And this is what the model that I'm trying to express to all the useless, powerless, with no consciousness, with no human potential, that they cannot fight and say, screw this. Screw Hamas. I don't want to take part of this. Just jump off the fence. Get the out of there. Run for your life. Earth is big. So you tell me about society. People migrate. Even the animal migrate. The butterflies migrate. When there is impossible condition like this, we have human predators that controlling this whole thing called Gaza. It's the oldest refugee camp in the world. It's supposed to be demolished 70 years ago. It's an unhealthy place with no infrastructure, most crowded area, or one of the most crowded areas on Earth. What's the need for this? I don't mind, people relocating. 2 million people can be relocated, going into the Arab world, wherever they want to go. Earth is big. Why to stay there under the rule of Hamas if you cannot fight Hamas? Even, we're trying to convince the people, depart the northern Gaza to the southern Gaza, and they cannot even obey the order. Israel, through leaflets, text messaging, speakers, internet, Facebook, they used every possible mean to tell the people this is serious. We are coming, and we are coming big. There is a big war. We have to eradicate Hamas. And the people still, asleep until it's too late. And now we're witnessing all this civilian casualties. The reality of war is ugly, okay? Israel did not start this war. And Hamas started this war. They are the only ones to take the blame. The only party that has the children's blood on their hands. Believe it, don't believe it, it's your problem. Hamas has to go. We have to remove them from power because we cannot afford another Gaza war. It's as simple as that. The people want to label me. They want to label Israel. They want to label the CIA, all the people. It's not only Israel in this war. It's the U.S. government, the mighty of the U.S. government, the nuclear power, the superpower of the world is in this war. And do you think they don't know better? Because we all know that there is no way around it this time. We have to eradicate Hamas. So think that this is extreme. Think whatever you want to think. We are at war, and war ugly. And at war, people die. It's as simple as that.
What do we do about kids radicalized by Hamas? Schools taught to hate Israel, taught to hate Jews by both schools and, of course, the trauma of being attacked by Israel in this war and in others. How do we recover this generation and the next? It seems impossible. I worry that Israel's incursion into Gaza is the best recruiting drive for Hamas in the history of the organization. Every time they kill a terrorist, they create half a dozen more. And there's the famous saying, you can't bomb an ideology, right?
Yes, but also the principle that species adapt and change. So now we are witnessing an extreme. It's the peak of hatred, and there is no place for dialogue and reason. When we were forced to use the last resort, which is the use of force, and Hamas pushed everybody to the corner, challenging the free world and challenging democracy, challenging everybody who's thought that we are over the dark ages of mankind. This is what they did. And they want us to go down to their level. This is why there was no other choice but the use of the sword, the use of the gun. So now the gun is louder than dialogue. This is the reality of war. This is why war is not recommended as the first option. It's always dialogue, and Hamas refused dialogue. They refused to disarm. They refused to recognize Israel's right to exist. They hijacked an entire society. They gambled with children, knowing that Israel retaliation will create more hatred because this is where they thrive. This is the perfect climate for them. They know when chaos happens, so they wanted to just pull such a barbaric attack in the worst possible way that would drag Israel into the dirtiest possible war where Israel would take the blame. This is Hamas thinking. This is the Iranian strategy. This is the mullah hatred projected through this war. And it was inevitable for Israel. This is where, I get so, I don't want to say, I'm not frustrated, I'm not angry. I'm just furious. I'm just furious about the situation. So basically you're telling me about generations. This is not the time right now to talk about how the damage is not only in Gaza. Everybody who watch on the social media, on TV, the atrocities of Gaza and human brutality at its best, or should I say at its worst. How can they forget that? Why do you think people are very angry? Because this is bringing the truth of death, the truth of the other side of humanity, of human cruelty. where there is no compassion, where there is no love, when there is absence of God, where there is absence of truth. This is how low we went. Yes, now we are in modern cities, but I'm not sure, if you continue like this, I don't know all the facade surrounding us and the fashion and the infrastructure, etc., technology, our satellites. And we brag about stuff, And the person who understands satellite and launching missiles into space, let him focus on that part. This is his specialty. Stay out of the business that you don't understand. Don't even give advice about it. Now it's the time to sit down and listen. It's not the time to sit and to stand and talk to the world. Let those who understand the situation talk. It's not your turn now. Respect that. And you know what I mean when I say these words.
Yeah,
so with that said...
I definitely do.
Okay. So basically, if you want to build a generation and talk about, oh my God, we are killing Hamas, but we are creating many other Hamases. Of course. But we have to eradicate Hamas first. This job needs to be done. We have to finish with this task first. This is the hard task. Then after that, we can deal with the human trauma. How to heal not only Gaza, to heal the entire world by showing everybody that the use of violence is a dead end. And what Hamas did was a dead end. How do we prove that to be correct? Is by finishing Hamas in Gaza, this war. But if Hamas gets a free ticket out of this, because of our weakness, and because of our hypocrisy, because of our short-term interest, because of our attempt to escape reality and escape our responsibility, then this is going to be repeated not only by Hamas. There will be many other groups that would say, oh, wow, Hamas was able to actually bring Israel as a democracy to its knees. And Hamas was able to create a division in the United States of America, put the United States government in an emergency state. We're talking about Hamas, such a small terrorist group, few thousands in Gaza. But they put us in emergency or at emergency. So how many terrorist groups around the world, savages, are going to look at this and say like, oh, wow, it did not need to take the Soviet Union to actually counter the United States. All you have to do is just have few thousand fighters, and you will be able to bend democracies. You will be able to make them beg for a ceasefire. This is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Now it's not about it's not a point of view right now. We are at war. Let the warriors do the job. Those who talk and very good at talking, the sooth talkers, etc., they can sit down and watch. When the war is over, they can speak again.
What percentage of civilians in Gaza do you think support Hamas? I know some people, many people maybe might even see Hamas as their only hope, their only resistance, but surely many also realize that Hamas is partially responsible for the situation they face right now and did trigger this particular response.
Hamas is not the first Palestinian leadership that pause as the protector of the innocent Palestinian people. Yasser Arafat, it took him 40 years. How many airplanes he hijacked? He ruined Jordan. He ruined Lebanon. He ruined Tunisia. Wherever his people went, they brought destruction and chaos. This is, where terrorists thrive. This is where Hamas thrive, when there is chaos. They don't like order. When there is order, they die. There is no need for them. What the Palestinian people need, they don't need Hamas, a terrorist organization, savages, that they ignite a war in order for them to cultivate wealth and power and territory, etc. They don't care for the people. What people need, they don't even need a state. What we need to build a nation. And I said this many times. Hamas is fighting for a statehood. Palestinian Authority was fighting for a statehood. Yasser Arafat was fighting for a state. Everybody fighting for a state. But no one is investing any effort to build a nation. You know why? Because building a nation requires selfless leadership. A model like Gandhi that would drop all the personal gain in order to build a nation. And that's not me, because I'm not posing as the Palestinian leader. I don't want to be the Palestinian leader. I don't like sheep, and I am not a shepherd. I'm just individual, and I am enough unto my own. But those who want to be in leadership, those who want to be in leadership, then they better be selfless. Build a nation. It takes a lot more effort to build a nation. Once we have a nation, a Palestinian nation, then we can start the discussion about a Palestinian state. But those, they want the state, because with the state comes power. With the nation comes lots of work and responsibility. They don't want that. They want the fruit, but they don't want the effort or to invest the effort. Hence, to this, I don't know what to call them actually. Nothing actually can define them. Because they're lower than the lowest definition that comes to my mind. So with that said, let's finish with Hamas. Then after that, we can help the Palestinian people. We can bring some police force and give them small guns. We don't need to give them big guns. Someone who's moderate, reliable, and we can keep them in check. Before we give them money, we see how they spend the money. We can borrow land from Egypt and expand Gaza, make a greater Gaza, instead of this very populated place. We can build economy. We can build bridges with the rest of the world in order to speed up the process of economic growth. I wrote a proposal about this many years ago. Nobody even listened to that. What we need is to give people education, healthcare, economy, infrastructure, a police force, so a girl or a youngster can travel safely from the criminals and the rapists on the street. And this is more than enough. I don't want even to think about a Palestinian state. I don't care for a Palestinian state. We have 22 Arab states, and all of them are garbage. I don't want another Arab state in that region. It's enough. They have all the human resources. They have everything. Human resources, natural resources, and they are behind. Pathetic example of beings. I'm talking about leaderships, and I'm talking about a majority of a nation that is falling from grace, that is incapable of saying that this is a terrorist group, to condemn terrorism. When they agree on something like this, when they stay in silence, they are partnering with this predator. So with that said, let's not jump ahead. We have job to do now. Priorities. Priority number 1, eradicating Hamas. Priority number 1. If we have a terrorist attack here down in Manhattan, first thing the police do, they go after the shooter to eradicate him. Then we can talk about, how we can heal the society from the trauma, how we can bring the economy back to its natural state, and how can we speed up the growth process. All this stuff we can discuss after war. Now we are at war, and it's an ugly war. It's a very ugly one.
I know you've got to run, but as we close here, are you at all worried that Hamas might come after you? I mean, you're not as much as when we met years ago, you were kind of like, can I say in hiding? I mean, you were located remotely, far away. Now you're more visible. Does that concern you at all?
Look, Hamas does not scare me. They should be very scared of me. And I think by now, when they see what I'm capable of doing, they see me everywhere. My shadow, my projections everywhere. And I will continue to hunt them Me, afraid of Hamas? And what's the worst actually they can do? What's the worst? If you think about it. Because in your calculation, you think that the death of the physical body is the end of the story. And I tell them, if they want to take my body, you can take my body, but everything that I said about their truth, and all the war that I waged against Hamas for the past 25 years will continue. It's a fire that is eternal. No man has the power to put it down. Not a government, not pro-Palestine movement, not intelligence service, not a majority of humanity can put the fire that I waged against Hamas for the past 25 years. This is what I've been in the work. What they want to come take this, behead me, try, and see if it's gonna work for anybody. I'm not scared of Hamas. I'm not scared of Al-Qaeda, of this low-life savages. They are the ones that should be afraid. And hence I say, when I say this, I'm just individual, but I represent many. I represent many in India. I represent many in South and East Asia. I represent many in Latin America. I represent many in America. I represent many in Europe. Okay, many of those who are silent warriors, but they are people of consciousness. We are seeing what's going on. And we are not counting on governments or United Nations. Yesterday, I was sitting at the Security Council of the United Nations. We can go wherever we want to go, if necessary. First, priorities. We are eradicating Hamas. We are after them. They are not after us.
The whole situation is so tragic. I'm afraid this is only the beginning. Mosab, thank you once again for doing this update with me, man. I really appreciate you coming back on the show, and it's good to see you. Next time I hope I see you, we have a more relaxed conversation.
Relax what? We are at war
maybe
right
just
now.
hang out.
We are at war.
That's
we
right.
are at war now. We finish the war, then we can be all relaxed.
Thank you for checking out this entire episode on YouTube. If you want to follow up on this topic, check out our podcast feed or visit us on our website at jordanharbinger.com, where you can learn more about our guest and dive even deeper into what we discussed today. And remember, YouTube is not the only place that you can check out The Jordan Harbinger Show. Any podcast app should have us. Check out the links in the description where you will find access to our shows that don't appear on YouTube, like Skeptical Sunday, where we debunk topics like crystal healing, GMOs, conspiracy theories, homeopathy, tipping, even lawns, to find out if they're backed by science and logic, or if they're just complete nonsense. Spoiler, many of them are complete nonsense. Also, our Feedback Friday shows where we help people escape from cults, get raises at work, and take all manner of questions from you, the audience, all the way down to the bottom of the barrel. And every episode of The Jordan Harbinger Show has something useful you can take away and apply in your own life and help you navigate what I know can often seem like the overwhelming and paralyzing challenges of modern life. Life can be hard, yes, but we are here to help. And if you appreciate how we help, remember to like, comment, and subscribe.